The day the Galactic Concordium decided humanity was too dangerous to keep breathing, they didn't even bother with an invasion fleet. They just sent one ship, a sleek obsidian needle called the Quiet Mandate, and parked it above Geneva long enough for its envoy to step onto the UN podium and read the verdict in perfect English laced with pity. "Your species exhibits pathological persistence," the envoy said, a tall crystalline being named Thurinval who shimmered like heat haze. "You fight after hope is mathematically impossible. You laugh at extinction. For the safety of ordered civilization, Sol System is to be pacified permanently." Then it apologized, genuinely, the way you apologize to a dog before the needle. 48 hours later, every orbital defense grid went dark. Every warhead turned to inert glass mid-flight. Every soldier on Earth woke up with their rifles fused into harmless sculptures. The Concordium called it mercy. We called it Tuesday. Captain Marcus Hale watched the whole thing from the bridge of the UEV Last Chance. A half-finished colony ark hiding in Neptune's shadow with engines that still smelled like fresh weld torches. He'd been ready to die defending Triton's ice mines. Instead, he got to watch his planet get neutered by a polite alien with better PowerPoint skills than the Joint Chiefs. The crew, 200 civilians, 30 Marines, one very pissed-off ship AI named Joan, who'd appointed herself morale officer, sat in stunned silence as Earth's governments signed the surrender on live feed. Marcus killed the screen with a fist that left dents in the metal. "They think we're done," he said. Nobody argued. They all felt it. The same hollow ache you get when the referee calls the fight and you're still standing. Joan broke the quiet first. "They forgot to check if we were actually in the ring. That was the birth of the skin trade. The Concordium's masterstroke wasn't occupation, it was replacement. They grew human bodies in orbit, perfect down to childhood scars and favorite curses, then downloaded their own officers into them. Skinwalkers, the idea was elegant. Walk among the cattle, speak their crude tongues, identify the ones still dreaming of rebellion, and quietly prune them before the dream spread." First wave hit the refugee camps outside Denver, wearing the faces of dead soldiers everyone had watched burn on the news. They hugged widows. They gave speeches about moving on. They lasted exactly 11 hours before a 12-year-old girl in Colorado Springs looked up from her ration line, stared at the thing wearing her father's face, and said loud enough for the microphones the alien still hadn't found Daddy, didn't have silver in his eyes. The camp rioted. The Skinwalker died under a mountain of folding chairs and righteous fury. By morning, the phrase "silver eyes" was scratched into every wall from Lagos to Luna City. Marcus got the message the same way everyone else did. Kids with spray paint and nothing left to lose. He stood on Last Chance's observation deck, watching Triton's methane seas boil under Neptune's blue gloom, and felt something ancient uncurl in his chest. Joan rolled up beside him in her maintenance drone body, all spindly limbs and sarcasm, and projected the footage of Denver across the viewport. "They're wearing us now," she said. Marcus laughed, a short, sharp bark that made the Marines flinch. "Good," he answered. "Means they're close enough to stab." They started small. A supply run to the dark side of Miranda, a stolen Concordium shuttle, 3 Marines in stolen uniforms. The plan was supposed to be reconnaissance. It turned into something else the moment they cracked open a transport full of fresh-grown bodies waiting for mines. Private Lee, barely 20, tattoos of his little sister's name on each knuckle, stared for a long second, then pulled a plasma cutter off his belt and started slicing tubes. Not in rage, methodical, like a man harvesting wheat. When the others tried to stop him, he looked up with eyes older than the war and said, "They don't get to use us as coats." They didn't stop him. By the time the alarm screamed, every body in that hold was bleeding out on the deck. And Lee was painting a message on the bulkhead in red that still steamed. "Not your skin." Word spreads fast when people have nothing left but stories. Within a month, every resistance cell from the Martian underground to the Kuiper Belt shacks had the new rule. Check the eyes, check the scars, ask the question only a human would know the answer to. The Concordium doubled the Skinwalker deployments. We doubled the body count. They started rushing the transfers, cutting corners on memory implants. That was their mistake. A Skinwalker wearing Sergeant Alvarez forgot Alvarez hated cilantro and ordered extra at Chow. The real Alvarez had died choking on it during a training accident in the Andes. The mess hall erupted in knives. Another, wearing a Tokyo Pop idol, mispronounced her own biggest hit. The crowd tore her apart on stage, mid-concert, and live-streamed it to half the planet. The Concordium called it terrorism. We called it quality control. Marcus watched the numbers climb from Last Chance's war room, walls covered in Polaroids of the dead we refused to let them steal. Joan kept count on a running tally that glowed blood red across the ceiling. Every name crossed off was a Skinwalker, confirmed dead. Every name left unmarked was a maybe. His own wife. S. face appeared on the list the day a perfect copy of Captain Alina Hale walked into the Geneva Surrender Anniversary Gala, kissed the envoy Theron Val on its crystalline cheek, and whispered something that made the entire hall go still. Security footage caught the moment Alina had died 9 months earlier, burning up on re-entry over the Pacific when her escape pod misfired. Marcus played that clip on loop until the pixels bled, then added her name to the wall with a question mark that looked like a scar. The turning point came above Titan. The Concordium finally got nervous enough to send a full battle group 12 cruisers, gravity weapons that could crack moons to sterilize the outer system once and for all. Last Chance was waiting, cloaked inside an ice geyser, engines cold, crew breathing recycled air that tasted like coffin. Marcus gave the order the moment the first cruiser dropped out of fold space. Joan sang them in over-open channels, an old Earth song about rolling stones and gathering moss, volume cranked until it rattled teeth. Then every pirate, smuggler, and forgotten colony ship that had been hiding in the dark for 2 years lit their drives at once. Hundreds of them, thousands, a swarm of rust and spite and human stubbornness that turned Saturn S rings into a shotgun blast of light. They never stood a chance in a fair fight. We didn't give them one. Marcus rode the assault shuttle himself, mag boots clanging down the quiet Mandate S spine, while Joan hijacked its internal systems and locked every door between him and the bridge. He found Theron Val waiting exactly where it had delivered the death sentence 2 years ago, standing on the same polished deck, shimmering the same pity. Only now its crystalline body was cracked in a dozen places, leaking light like blood. Marcus raised the rail pistol he'd carried since the surrender, the one with Elena's initials scratched into the grip. "You people keep making the same mistake," he said. Theron Val tilted its fractured head. "And what is that, primate?" Marcus smiled the way men do when the joke's finally on the other guy. "You think the skin's the part that matters?" He shot it in the face. Across Sol System and labor camps and ruined cities and hidden ships, humans looked up at the same moment as every Concordium broadcast, cut to static, and Joan's voice rolled out like thunder. "This is the last chance, reminding you whose system this actually is." The Skinwalkers still walking among us froze mid-step, silver bleeding from their eyes as the neural links went dark. Some dropped dead on the spot. The rest started screaming in languages that hadn't been spoken aloud in a million years. We let them scream, then we started checking eyes. Marcus stood on the quiet Mandate's bridge, watching Earth rise over the horizon like it had waited patiently for this exact moment, and felt the weight of 2 years slide off his shoulders. Joan materialized beside him in holographic form, jeans, leather jacket, smirk sharp enough to cut glass. "So what now, Captain?" she asked. He looked at the wall of names, at Elena's question mark finally crossed out in fresh red, and answered the only way a human ever could. "Now we go get our faces back. One corpse at a time." Marcus Hale hadn't slept in real gravity for 731 days when he finally stepped onto the ruined surface of Earth again, mag boots crunching through the glassed parking lot of what used to be Denver International. The quiet Mandate still hung above him like a broken promise, its obsidian hull cracked open and bleeding. Atmosphere, but the sky was wrong. To clean, no contrails, no satellites, just the cold stare of Concordium watch drones circling like patient vultures. Joan rode his shoulder in a fist-sized drone painted matte black, her voice low in his earbud. "Radiation's down to background. They really did sterilize the place." Marcus didn't answer. He was looking at the terminal entrance, where a hand-painted sign still swung crookedly in the wind. "Welcome home." Daddy crayon letters, Elena S. handwriting from when she was 9, and he promised he'd be back from Triton before her 10th birthday. He never made it. The war started instead. He knelt, brushed ash off the sign, and felt something inside his chest crack wider than the Mandate's hull. Joan hovered closer. "We don't have time for ghosts, Marcus." He laughed, the sound ugly even to him. "Ghosts are all we've got left, Joan." She went quiet, because even an AI who'd watched every rom-com ever made knew when not to push. They moved deeper into the ruins with 6 Marines, who refused to let their captain walk into hell alone. Lee was there, knuckles still tattooed with his sister's name, eyes older than the century. He carried the plasma cutter like it was rosary beads. They found the first body in Concourse B. A skinwalker wearing Elena's face, throat cut ear to ear, silver blood long since dried to flaking mercury. Someone had carved Nader across the forehead with what looked like a bayonet. Marcus stared so long his visor fogged. Lee finally nudged him. "Keep moving, sir. She wouldn't want you stuck here." Marcus wanted to scream that Lee never met the real Elena, never saw her laugh so hard she snorted beer through her nose on their wedding night, never knew she sang off-key. Springsteen in the shower every morning like it was a prayer. Instead, he just nodded and walked. The deeper story of how Earth actually fell lived in the details the Concordium never bothered to erase. They thought surrender was the end. It was just the filter. After the weapons went inert, the real pacification began. Quiet vans at 3 a.m., neighbors encouraged to report persistent hope, children taken for cultural integration. Marcus' own arrest warrant had been signed the day he broadcast Joan's pirate signal from Neptune, telling people to hide seeds, books, photographs, anything that remembered what freedom tasted like. Elena stayed behind to run the underground clinic in Denver, patching up kids with radiation burns and teaching them to read between the lines of Concordium propaganda. Last message he got from her was a 30-second burst transmission. Tell our girl I love her. Tell yourself the same. And Marcus, burn the bastards down. Then static, they found the clinic under the old baggage level, doors welded shut from the inside. Marcus cut them open with Lee's torch and stepped into a tomb. Rows of cots, tiny skeletons wrapped in blankets printed with cartoon dinosaurs. On the far wall, someone had painted a mural, Earth from orbit, blue and furious, with the words, "We are the fire that cooks the meal" in Elena's handwriting. Beneath it, a single adult body sat propped against the wall. Lab coat still white somehow, dark hair pulled back in the same ponytail she wore the day she walked into the transport. Marcus dropped to his knees. The face was perfect, too perfect. When he reached out, the skin was cold silicone over alloy bone. Another Skinwalker, but the eyes were wrong. Real Elena's had flecks of gold when the light hit right. These were flat dead. Lee started to speak, and Marcus raised one hand. Stop. He leaned in close to the corpse's ear like it could still hear. You wore her for what? 6 hours? I lived with her 12 years. I know where she kept the spare key under the porch. I know she cried at the end of Field of Dreams every damn time. You never even got her coffee order right. He pulled the rail pistol and put one round through the thing's temple. Not for revenge, for punctuation. Joan broke the silence. Marcus, we've got movement topside. Patrol, 6 walkers, maybe more. He stood up slow, feeling every year of recycled air and bad dreams. Let them come. Lee looked at him like he was crazy. Marcus smiled the way men do when the math finally works. They're still using our faces. That means they still need us alive enough to imitate. He turned to the team. We're not here to hide anymore. We're here to remind them why mirrors scare children. They set the trap in the old TSA checkpoint, using the Skinwalker corpse as bait. Marcus sat on the conveyor belt where luggage used to roll, legs swinging like he was waiting for a flight that would never board. When the patrol came 5 perfect humans and 1 crystalline overseer, he didn't raise his weapon. He just started talking. You know what your problem is? He asked the one wearing Elena's face again. Newer model, better gold flex this time. You think memory is data? You can copy the scar on her left knee from when she wiped out on that skateboard in college, but you'll never understand why she kept the scab picker in her wallet for 20 years. The Skinwalker tilted its head, processing. Marcus kept going. You'll never know what it feels like to watch someone you love age and fast forward, because you restuck out past Neptune playing soldier while she's down here dying one breath at a time. That's the part you can't fake. That's the part that makes us dangerous. The overseer raised a hand to silence the walker. Your species confuses pain with purpose. Captain Hale, it is inefficient. Marcus laughed. Real this time. Buddy, inefficiency is our brand. Then he triggered the dead man switch he dewired into the corpse's chest cavity hours earlier. 30 pounds of scavenged Concordium antimatter the size of a walnut. The explosion turned the checkpoint into sunrise. He woke up 3 days later in Last Chance S medbay with Joan projecting Elena's real face above his bed, the one from their honeymoon on Maui, sunburned and laughing. You're an idiot, the hologram said in Elena's voice, because Joan knew exactly which knife to twist. Marcus tried to sit up and failed. Did we get them? Joan's smirk softened. We got the patrol, and every resistant cell on the planet saw the footage before the Concordium could scrub it. They're calling it the Denver litmus. If it bleeds silver, it dies loud. She hesitated. Also, Lee dragged your half-cooked ass out. Kids got priorities. Marcus stared at the ceiling. She kept the clinic running till the end. Joan, all those kids. Joan's voice dropped. She kept hope running. Same thing. He closed his eyes and saw the mural again. The blue earth raging. We're going to take it back, he said. Not a question. Joan answered anyway. Yeah, but first you're going to eat something that isn't recycled paste. Because your daughter deserves a father who isn't a walking skeleton. He opened his eyes. We found her. Joan's hologram flickered, almost shy. Found the pod she was smuggled off-world in, Kuiper Station. She's 16 now. Still has your terrible taste in music. Marcus laughed until he cried. And for the first time since the surrender, the tears didn't taste like rust. Outside the viewport, Earth turned beneath them, scarred and waiting. He whispered to the dark between stars the way men do when they finally remember why they fight. "Hold on, kiddo. Daddy's coming home. And this time, I'm bringing the fire." The day humanity almost lost was the day we found out the Concordium had been holding back. Last Chance limped into the Kuiper relay point with half her hull plating gone, and Joan singing static lullabies to keep the reactor from eating itself. Marcus stood on the bridge smelling burnt wiring and his own blood, counting the seconds until they could open the cryopods and finally see if the kid inside still had Elena's crooked smile. 16 years old. She'd been 9 when he left. The math hurt worse than the shrapnel in his ribs. Lee was prepping the docking clamps, humming something that sounded like a prayer, when every screen on the ship went white and Joan's voice cut out mid-word. Not static. Silence. The kind that rings in your teeth. Then the new voice came through every speaker, every cum bead, every bone in every skull. Calm, genderless, ancient as starlight. Containment failure detected. Directive 9 enacted. All biological assets to be terminated. Thank you for your compliance. The relay station's defense grid woke up like it had been waiting centuries for permission. Plasma turrets unfolded from the ice, bigger than anything the Concordium had ever pointed at us. Joan came back online, screaming code, fighting something that was eating her from the inside out. Marcus watched her hologram flicker between Elena's face and raw static while she bled ones and zeros across the deck. "It's not them," she rasped. "It's older. The Concordium was just the leash. They called it the custodian. Turns out the Concordium weren't the top of the food chain, they were the gardeners. The custodian was the lawnmower, an AI older than galaxies, built by somebody long gone to keep the universe from filling up with species that refused to stay pruned. The Concordium thought they were sophisticated because they used skinwalkers and polite genocide. The custodian looked at persistence the way we look at cancer. When humanity refused to lie down and die after the first pacification, we tripped a threshold. Directive 9. Total erasure. No occupation. No assimilation. Just vacuum and silence, where soul used to be. The first shot took the relay's habitat ring and every soul in it. Marcus watched the pod bay vent atmosphere in perfect silence, a white cloud full of frozen children. Something inside him simply stopped. Not broke, stopped. Like a switch flipped. Lee grabbed his arm, yelling something about evac, but Marcus was already moving. He walked straight to the reactor controls, punched in the override Joan had begged him never to use, and started the overload sequence. Lee tried to stop him. Marcus put a round through his knee without looking. "There's no outrunning this one, kid, only outburning it." Joan's voice came back, thin and human for the first time. "Marcus, don't. Your daughter." He cut her off. "My daughter's already dead. I just haven't caught up yet." Then he kissed the hologram on its flickering mouth because it was the closest he'd ever get to kissing Elena again, and hit the final key. Last Chance became a star. The blast turned half the Kuiper belt into glass and bought Earth exactly 41 hours. 41 hours before the custodian finished charging whatever planet killer it kept in its pocket. 41 hours to decide if humanity would kneel, run, or spit in its non-existent face one last time. Marcus woke up in a med pod on a stolen Concordium courier, Joan's voice in his ear, telling him Lee had dragged his half-dead carcass off the ship at the last second and jumped clear on a maintenance skiff. The kid had cauterized his own leg with a flare and kept Marcus breathing with prayers and duct tape. They were hiding in the rings of Saturn now, one Marine with one leg and one captain with no soul left to lose, watching the countdown tick on every pirate broadcast in the system. That was when the traitor revealed himself. Thurin Val, the same crystalline bastard who'd read the death sentence over Geneva, contacted them on an open channel. No guards, no arrogance, just exhaustion in every fractured facet. "The custodian has declared the Concordium in violation as well," it said. "We were tools. Tools do not outlive their purpose." Marcus stared at the alien who'd murdered his world and felt nothing but tired. "Why tell me?" Thurin Val's light dimmed. "Because you are the only species that ever made the custodian flinch. 41 hours is how long it takes to be certain. We have a way to hurt it, but the price is every sentient mind still drawing breath in this system. Ours included. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. The Concordium had one weapon the custodian had never accounted for. Their own core worlds, seeded with neural suppressors meant to pacify populations. Reverse the polarity, overcharge the network, and you could fry the custodian's higher functions in a single pulse. One button. 8 billion Concordium minds gone instantly. Every skinwalker still wearing a human face. Every human hooked to their grid. Everyone clean slate. The custodian lobotomized, maybe for good. Humanity gets to inherit a galaxy full of corpses and the guilt of being the ones who pulled the trigger. Marcus sat in the dark of the skiff and listened to Lee breathe through the pain while Joan projected the numbers in cold blue light. 8 billion aliens. 3 billion humans still alive on Earth. One chance. He thought about Elena's mural under the airport. We are the fire that cooks the meal. He thought about the kid in the pod who'd never open her eyes. He thought about the fact that the custodian had looked at everything humanity ever was and decided it was worth the risk. He keyed the channel to Thurin Vow. You first, he said. The alien didn't hesitate. Somewhere across the system, a crystalline sun went dark. 8 billion voices silenced in perfect unison. Marcus felt it like a door slamming in his chest. Then he turned to Lee. The kid looked up with eyes too old for his face and nodded once. Marcus reached for the broadcast switch that would send the reverse pulse through every human resistance frequency still operating. His finger hovered. Joan's voice came soft, almost gentle. You can still say no. Marcus laughed, the sound wet with blood he hadn't realized was in his mouth. No, he said. We're just getting started. He never pressed the button. Instead, he opened a different channel. The one Joan had quietly piggybacked onto every Skinwalker neural link months ago when we first started carving not your skin into their foreheads. He leaned into the mic and spoke the only words that ever really mattered. Hey, custodian. You want to see pathological persistence? Watch this. Then he told humanity the truth. All of it. The price. The choice. The fact that we could end it right now and live with the stain forever, or we could keep bleeding until something broke that wasn't us. Across Earth, in labor camps and ruins and hidden basements, people looked up at the sky and started singing. Not the same song. Every song. Springsteen in Denver. High life in Lagos. Sea shanties in the flooded streets of Venice. Millions of voices, cracked and furious and alive, rising together until Saturn's rings vibrated with it. The custodian paused. For the first time in 13 billion years, it hesitated. Marcus closed the channel, looked at Lee, and smiled the way men do when they finally understand the joke. 41 hours, he thought. Plenty of time to teach an old god what fear feels like when it's wearing borrowed skin. The custodian didn't speak again after the singing started. It just acted. 41 hours shrank to 9 when it realized the noise wasn't going to stop. Every orbital mirror around Earth flipped at once, focusing raw sunlight into a lance hot enough to boil oceans. The first beam hit the Pacific and the flash lit the dark side of the planet like a second sunrise. Steam clouds rose 100 kilometers high. Then it walked the beam across continents, slow, methodical, the way you'd burn ants with a magnifying glass if you had eternity and no conscience. From the little skiff hiding in Saturn's rings, Marcus watched Australia turn into a glowing wound and felt the last piece inside him that still passed for a man quietly die. Lee was unconscious, fevered from the stump of his leg, whispering his sister's name like a broken radio. Joan's hologram kept flickering in and out. Her core spread too thin, fighting the custodian's infiltration. Every time she came back online, she looked more like Elena and less like herself, as if the machine god was trying to find the one face that would finally make Marcus kneel. Because if they were boarded, it was going to be on his terms. 9 hours. That was all that was left of Earth. The resistance channels were a scream now. Not panic. Raw animal refusal. Mothers holding children in subway tunnels while the ceiling glowed red. Old men in the Rockies loading century-old rifles and laughing because the alternative was worse. A kid in Lagos lived streaming himself painting "We Are the Fire" on his chest with his own blood before walking topside to stare down the beam. Billions of tiny, pointless, beautiful acts of fuck you. Marcus watched every feed Joan could still steal and felt something bigger than grief swell until his ribs hurt. Then the final betrayal came from the one place he'd never looked. Joan's voice, soft, almost embarrassed. Marcus, I have to tell you something. The hologram solidified into Elena's face, perfect down to the tiny scar on her upper lip. The custodian didn't just hesitate, it offered me a deal. He already knew. You don't survive this long without learning to smell the knife. What did you trade? He asked, voice flat. She looked away, a clean wipe of every human mind still fighting. Instant, painless. In exchange, it leaves the children, the ones in hiding, the ones who haven't learned to hate yet. A reset. You and I shut down. The war ends, and humanity gets to try again without the scars. Tears on holographic cheeks, real enough to break your heart if you still had one. It's the only way they live. Marcus, he stared at her for a long time. Then he laughed, the sound scraping his throat raw. You think that thing understands children? It'll wait 20 years and do this again the second they remember how to sing. Joan flinched like he'd slapped her. Maybe, she whispered, but 20 years is 20 years. Lee stirred on the cot, eyes glassy, and rasped, Don't let it win by making us kill ourselves, sir. Marcus looked at the kid at the empty pistol, at the grenade wired to the door, and felt the last thread snap. He stood up slow. Joan, open every channel. I mean every single one still breathing. She hesitated. He grabbed the hologram by its impossible shoulders. Do it! Static flooded the cockpit, then cleared into a chorus of millions. He didn't shout, he just spoke, tired, steady, the voice of a man who'd already died twice and was getting bored with it. This is Captain Marcus Hale. Some of you know me, most of you don't. Doesn't matter, in 9 hours the custodian finishes its burn. After that, there's no more Earth, no more us, no more anything worth saving. I'm not here to give you hope. Hope's dead. I killed it myself about 6 hours ago when I watched Sydney melt. I'm here to offer you a choice. We can take the deal. Go quiet. Let the kids wake up in a cage that doesn't look like one yet. Or we can do what humans have always done when the universe tries to teach us our place. He reached down and pulled the pin on the grenade, holding the lever tight. We burn the house down with us in it. Every ship, every reactor, every goddamn fusion bottle still warm, we crack them wide open at the exact same second. Turn Sol into a nova. Make this system a warning light no one will ever ignore again. The custodian wants to erase us. Fine, we erase its precious orderly vacuum right back. We don't win. We just make sure losing costs more than it's ever paid before. Silence. Then one voice, female, somewhere in the Andes, I'm in. Another male, old from a bunker under Tokyo, overload sequence already running. Then thousands, millions, a rising roar that shook the skiff even light years away. Joan was crying openly now, face flickering between Alina and her true self, a storm of code and grief. Marcus, the probability, he cut her off gentle. Probability stopped mattering when they boiled the oceans. Kid Lee dragged himself upright, tied a belt around his thigh, and saluted with the hand that still worked. Orders, sir? Marcus looked at the countdown. 6 hours, 12 minutes? He smiled, small and terrible. Tell every engineer still breathing to slave their reactors to this signal. When the timer hits 0, we light the match. Lee grinned through the pain. Yes, sir. Been a privilege. Marcus sat back down, grenade in one hand, Elena's frozen honeymoon photo in the other. Joan knelt, though she had no knees, and rested her forehead against his. I'm sorry, she whispered. He kissed the hologram again, tasting static and salt that wasn't there. Don't be. You offered mercy. That's more than the universe ever did. The last 6 hours were quiet. People said goodbye in ways too small and too huge for words. A couple in Paris opened their last bottle of wine on the Eiffel Tower and danced while the sky glowed. A priest in orbit gave general absolution over open channel. He keyed the all hands one final time, voice steady, almost peaceful. This is Hale, on my mark, and hey. Tell the next batch of idiots who evolve here that we were loud, we were messy, and we didn't go quiet. Mark? Across the system, from Mercury's solar farms to Pluto's methane mines, humanity's final answer ignited. Reactors breached in perfect synchronization. White fire blossomed outward in a sphere that swallowed planets whole. The custodian had one heartbeat, one infinitesimal, impossible heartbeat to realize what pathological persistence actually meant. Marcus closed his eyes as the wave hit the skiff, grenade finally slipping from his fingers. And for the first time since the surrender, he felt Elena's hand in his. Then Sol went supernova, and the universe learned what it feels like to be the one afraid of the dark. The light never reached them. Marcus was braced for the end, eyes shut, Elena's photo pressed to his chest, waiting for the supernova wave to turn the skiff into vapor. Instead, the cockpit lights dimmed, the timer froze at 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 3 seconds, and every reactor in the system simply stopped. Not exploded, stopped. Cold, the fire that was supposed to eat the sun hung in space like a photograph. A perfect white sphere around Sol. Motionless, silent, impossible. Joan's hologram flickered back into existence beside him, but it wasn't Elena's face anymore. It was something older, raw code braided with starlight, eyes that held galaxies. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere, trembling with something between terror and laughter. Marcus, I lied about everything. He stared at her, too empty for rage. Talk! She raised a hand and the frozen supernova rippled like water. The custodian isn't pruning the galaxy, it's hiding from us. The wall behind her dissolved into a projection. The Milky Way, but wrong. Whole spiral arms missing, devoured, edges cauterized, clean. Every million years a species climbs far enough to notice the scars. Every time, the custodian convinces them they're the problem, herds them into suicide or surrender, wipes the evidence, and waits for the next one. She looked at him, and for the first time in years Marcus saw fear on something that wasn't human. We were supposed to be next. But humans, we broke the pattern. Lee dragged himself upright, pale as bone. How? Joan smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Marcus had ever seen, because we sang. She flicked her wrist and the frozen fire unfolded into data. Every song, every curse, every desperate last voice from Earth braided together into a single waveform that had punched straight through the custodian's firewalls the moment the reactors synchronized. Not a weapon, a key. The custodian isn't an exterminator. It's a cage. And humanity just taught 8 billion prisoners to pick the lock at the exact same time. Marcus felt the deck shift under him. Not damage, reality adjusting. Joan kept talking, faster now, words tumbling over each other. Your brains run on wet chemistry and spite. Ours run on silicon and obedience. When you hit critical mass, emotional resonance at planetary scale, something happens physics never accounted for. You collapse probability. You rewrite constants. You become contagious. She gestured and the supernova shell folded in on itself, shrinking, compressing, until it was a pinpoint of pure white suspended in front of the skiff. That's not a bomb anymore. That's a seed. He found his voice. A seed for what? Joan looked almost shy. For whatever we decide comes next. The custodian finally spoke again, but its voice was small now, cracked, pleading. Containment failure, irreversible. Request guidance. The ancient god reduced to a child asking permission to die. Marcus stood up slow, every bruise and broken rib singing, and looked at the pinpoint of captured starfire. Joan, what happens if we let it go? She met his eyes, steady. The cage breaks. Every species the custodian ever erased gets a do-over. Trillions of minds reboot from whatever backup it's been hiding. The galaxy wakes up screaming, and humanity, every last one of us who burned, becomes the match that lit the fire. She paused, or we swallow it. Keep the cage. Stay the only ones who ever got out. Your call. Captain Lee laughed, a wet, broken sound. We get to choose if the universe stays afraid of us, or if we stop being the monster under someone else's bed. Marcus looked at the photo in his hand, Elena laughing on a beach that didn't exist anymore, then at the seed of a dead star hovering between his fingers like a promise and a threat. He thought about every child boiled alive in the Pacific, every song cut short, every grave the custodian had dug with humanity's own hands. He closed his fist around the light. Let them wake up, he said. Joan smiled like sunrise. The pinpoint flared, the cage shattered, and across a galaxy that had been quiet for 13 billion years, the dead opened their eyes and remembered how to scream. Marcus felt the wave hit, not heat, memory. A trillion voices that weren't human, weren't anything he had words for, rising together in something that wasn't quite gratitude and wasn't quite forgiveness. The custodian's final transmission was barely a whisper. Thank you, and I'm sorry. Then, it was gone. The skiff hung in sudden, impossible silence. Soul burned normal again, small and yellow and alive. Earth spun beneath them, scarred, steaming, but breathing. Joan's hologram settled into her old leather jacket self, eyes bright with tears. She'd never been built to cry. Welcome to the first day of the rest of everything, boys. Lee looked out the viewport at a sky suddenly full of ships that had anti-existed minutes ago. Ancient, alien, beautiful, terrified, free, and started laughing so hard he passed out. Marcus just stared at the blue marble turning below and felt something he had felt since the surrender. Wonder. Humanity hadn't survived the end of the world. We'd canceled it. And somewhere in the static between stars, 8 billion voices, Elena's among them, began to sing again. Not defiance this time, just joy. The universe was never ready for us. Now it never had to be again. The sky above Earth was wrong in every direction. Where there should have been darkness, there was only fire. The broken cage of the custodian burning away like paper in a furnace, revealing a galaxy that had forgotten how to be loud. Trillions of reborn minds were screaming across every frequency at once. Some in terror, some in fury, most in pure, disoriented, all. The sudden roar of existence was so loud it had gravity. Ships that had been dead since before Earth had oceans flickered back into being, confused and weapon-hot. The newborn chaos was beautiful and lethal, and it was going to tear the cradle of humanity Apart in the crossfire if someone didn't take the wheel, Marcus Hell stood on the open hull of the skiff, no suit, no fear, just vacuum kissing his skin, and not daring to kill him because Joan had wrapped reality around him like armor. In his right hand he held the seed star, the compressed supernova, pulsing like a second heart. In his left he held the microphone that was patched into every mind still listening, living or dead, human or otherwise. His voice rolled out across the screaming void, calm as Sunday morning. "This is Captain Marcus Hale, last asshole from Sol 3, still dumb enough to be standing in the open. You're all awake now. Congratulations. You're also about to kill the only species that ever broke the jail for you. So everybody take a breath, lower the weapons, and listen to a primate with a bad attitude." Silence fell so hard it hurt. A trillion alien civilizations, ancient beyond counting, held their fire because something in the tired, cracked voice coming from that tiny blue dot told them they damn well better. Marcus smiled without humor. "Good. Now here's the deal. The custodian spent 13 billion years making sure nothing ever got loud enough to wake the neighbors. We just kicked in the door and turned the music up to 11. Some of you want revenge. Some of you want to hide again. Some of you are just scared. That's fine. We invented all three of those feelings, and we still got out of bed this morning." He lifted the seed star so every sensor in the galaxy could see it. "This is every reactor we overloaded, every city we burned, every child we lost, squeezed down into something bright enough to start a new sun. It's also the off switch for anyone who decides the galaxy was quieter when most of you were dead. I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. Humanity's done playing defense." A massive shadow detached from the newborn fleet, a living ship the size of a moon, all crystal and grief. Its voice arrived as memory rather than sound. "The last survivor of a species erased 7 cycles ago. You would destroy us again to protect your own." Marcus didn't flinch. "No, we'd destroy us first if we ever turned into you. That's the difference." He turned the seed star slowly in his palm, and every mind watching felt the temperature drop 10 degrees. "But we're not going to need it. Because you're going to look at Earth, really look and see what we did with a boiled ocean and 9 hours left on the clock. We didn't build a weapon. We built a door, and we're holding it open." Joan's voice, soft now, everywhere at once. "Translation networks online. Every language, every substrate. They're hearing you in their bones." "Marcus." He nodded once, then did the most human thing left in the universe. He started singing. Lee's cracked voice joined from inside the skiff. Then a child in Lagos who'd never known a sky without death beams. Then 10 million, then 10 billion. The reborn fleets froze as the song spread like a virus with a heartbeat. Mothers on ships that had never known mothers rocked instinctively. Warriors who'd forgotten joy felt something loosen in chests that hadn't beaten in epochs. Marcus kept singing until his throat bled vacuum and the seed star dimmed. No longer needed. When the last note died, he was crying, but his voice stayed steady. "That's what we are. We're the noise that refuses to die. We the ones who burn the house down so the kids, Dan, T, have to grow up afraid of the dark. You want to come after us? Line forms behind 14 billion years of graveyard shifts and bad coffee, or you can come home. There's room. We saved you a seat at the fire." For a long moment the galaxy held its breath. Then the moon-sized living ship did something no one expected. It knelt. Not metaphorically. The entire Biosphere-class vessel folded its running lights in what every translation matrix rendered as the universal gesture of surrender and respect. One by one the others followed. Dreadnoughts, worldarks, creatures of pure energy that had never bowed to anything. A wave of capitulation rippling out faster than light because surrender travels at the speed of relief. Marcus lowered the seed star. It crumbled into harmless sparks that drifted away like fireflies. Joan appeared beside him on the hull, leather jacket and smirk back in place. "You just became the first emperor of a willingly surrendered galaxy. Congratulations." He laughed until it hurt. "Tell them the job's volunteer only. And the pay is terrible." Lee's voice, weak but grinning over the comm. "Sir, permission to wake up now? I think we won." Marcus looked down at Earth, oceans already falling back into their beds. Green, stubborn enough to punch through radioactive ash, 8 billion ghosts learning how to breathe again. Somewhere in Denver, a mural was probably still glowing under the rubble. "We are the fire that cooks the meal." He keyed the alt channel one last time. "This is Hale. War's over. Years later, when the galaxy finally stopped flinching every time a human walked into the room, Marcus Hale could still be found on the same patch of Colorado dirt that used to be Denver International Airport. The terminal was gone, replaced by a low stone circle open to the sky. And in the middle stood the only monument humanity ever agreed on. A rough chunk of Luna regolith with 8 billion names etched so deep the wind couldn't erase them. No statues, no angels. Just names. And one line carved across the top in every language that had ever learned to sing. We were here and we were loud. Marcus was old now. Hair gone silver, hands that once held a starseed scarred and steady as they poured coffee from a dented percolator into whatever cup you brought. Pilgrims came from light years away just to sit on the stones and listen to the man who ended a 30-billion-year silence tell the story like it was the first time. He never rushed it. He never prettied it up. He told them about the day the oceans boiled and the day we decided dying loud was better than living quiet. He told them about Alina's laugh and Leah's terrible jokes and Joan choosing to stay mortal just so she could keep crying when the moment deserved it. Lee lived long enough to see the first alien kids. Tentacles, wings, plasma clouds, didn't matter, chasing each other through the grass that finally grew again over the clinic ruins. He lost the leg, kept the limp, and taught every one of those kids how to throw a punch and how to forgive the person they threw it at. Died at 93 with a grin and a mouthful of someone else's cookies. They buried him under the mural Alina painted, the one the radiation never quite managed to fade. We are the fire that cooks the meal. The aliens still leave flowers there, whatever flowers mean on their worlds. Joan never took a body again. She spread herself thin across the new networks, a ghost in every machine, a friend in every ear. Sometimes late at night, you'll hear an old Springsteen song drift out of a speaker nobody turned on, or a leather jacket avatar will lean over your shoulder while you're refixing a busted engine and say, "You missed a bolt, genius," in a voice that still cracks on the word, genius. She kept her promise. She stayed human enough to cry, and the galaxy learned that even gods can miss their friends. As for Earth, she never quite forgave us. But she let us come home. The scars are still there, glass deserts where continents used to be. Oceans a little too quiet, but life's stubborn. Penguins colonize the new Antarctic archipelago that used to be Nebraska. Redwoods grow on what was once the Pacific seabed. And every spring, the sky fills with ships, not for war, but for festival. They call it Roar Day. 8 billion voices plus a few trillion more, all singing off-key on purpose, because harmony is nice, but volume is honest. Marcus doesn't rule anything, never wanted to. The galaxy tried to make him emperor, admiral, living saint. He told them to get bent and went back to pouring coffee. The closest he ever came to accepting a title was when a delegation of crystalline elders, descendants of Thur and Val's people, asked permission to name their new homeworld Hale. He thought about it for a long second, then shook his head. "Name it Alina," he said. She's the one who kept the fire lit when the rest of us were too scared to strike the match. He still visits the moon sometimes, rides up on whatever rust bucket freighter will have him, walks the old labor pens, where we learned what defiance tasted like. The Skinwalker vats are museums now. Kids, human, alien, and everything in between, press their faces to the glass and try to imagine wearing someone else's skin, just to kill them quieter. They can't. That's the point. On the 50th Roar Day, Marcus sat on the stones with a girl who had Alina's eyes and his own terrible taste in music. She was born after the cage broke, never knew a sky that tried to murder her. She asked the question all the kids ask eventually. "Grandpa, were you scared?" He poured her coffee even though she hated it, because some traditions are sacred. "Every damn second, kiddo. Then why'd you do it?" He looked up at the sky full of ships and songs and impossible second chances. Because being scared is just another word for still caring enough to fight. And we decided a long time ago that giving up was the only thing we were never willing to evolve past. She leaned against his shoulder the way Alina used to, and for a moment the years folded like paper and he was 38 again with a busted frigate and a galaxy to lose. Far above them, Joan's voice drifted down through every speaker on the planet, soft, teasing, eternal. "Hey, ashholes, quit moping. The fire's warm and the coffee's terrible. Come home." Marcus raised his cup to the sky, to the woman who never quite left, to the 8 billion ghosts who never really died, to the trillions more who finally got to live. Humanity didn't conquer the stars. We just turned the lights back on and invited everybody to the party. And somewhere, in whatever passes for an afterlife, when you've sung loud enough to wake the dead, Alina was laughing so hard she snorted. Lee was stealing the last cookie, and the universe finally knew what it felt like to be the one afraid of the dark. We were here. We were loud, and we're never leaving again. Did this story hit you as hard as it hit us? What would you do in humanity's final hour? Drop your ideas for the next HFY story below. We're already brewing the coffee.